Our second speaker today is another physician. Mr. Zuhdi Jasser is a physician who specializes in nuclear cardiology. He is a former president of the Arizona Medical Society. He is the founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy in Phoenix, Arizona. Mr. Jasser served as a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy. Mr. Jasser, we're honored to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to my Muslim colleagues and fellow American Muslims. I have a short time to talk to you about why I'm here, and I want to thank Stan Richards for organizing this and Drake University for hosting. And hopefully through the evening we'll be able to look at some of the issues that have driven the formation of our organization, the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. But I think at the core of why we formed is this issue of what it means to be an American Muslim and why we're Muslim and what are the challenges and disadvantages or advantages. Having been born here, I don't know it any other way. I've never been back to Syria where my parents are from. I grew up in Wisconsin, not far from here, and went to the University of Wisconsin and went to medical school there. But I will tell you that the narrative of my family is one that made me who I am. I think that right now, the reason all of you are here, as much as it may be good for you to hear from all the panelists about how well-adjusted Muslims are and how normal we are, etc., the bottom line is the reason you are here, the reason we now get last weekend hour after hour of town halls on ABC, 60 Minutes talking about Islam, the media is paying attention to our faith, even though we're barely 1% of the population, is because of fear. Because of the fact that terrorism is a problem, and that it's a problem that I think most of America has not seen the American Muslim community lead the charge to fight it. They've seen condemnations. I've yet to meet an American Muslim that endorses terrorism. I've never had a Muslim friend that thinks that violence is the way to do things. But the problem is that terrorism is a symptom. And we have to figure out how to treat this, and only Muslims can treat the problem. My family felt more American the moment they came off the airplane in 1966. They felt more Muslim in this country because of the feeling of being free to practice their faith. And they could actually practice their faith more freely in America than they could in any place else in the world, because the government wasn't telling them how to dress, how to act. My mother taught me, my parents taught me that my fast in America meant more when I'm working 14-hour days, when the food places aren't closed and that they're open, and I have a choice to eat or not eat. My prayers meant more in an interfaith culture because I chose to step away and do my prayers 5 times a day. So to me, faith is about choice, and it's about getting government out of our way so that we can choose to reject it, accept it, or whatever it is. And I think this is the problem that we're not recognizing as Muslims, is that the challenge of being an American is embracing those ideas and realizing that the symptom of terrorism is actually an ideology that seeks to do away with societies like ours, to stop the influence of the West upon Islamic majority countries, where they want Islamic law, and Islamic law and theocracy has been an opposite reaction to secular dictatorships. And I think one of the things that I've been active in the formation of our organization is that there is a third pathway, which is called liberty. In the Middle East, especially, which I'm familiar with, there's been 2 choices: secular dictatorships of Hafiz Assad, Saddam Hussein, Mubarak, Gaddafi, all these others, and theocracy, as you see in Iran or in Saudi Arabia with the marriage between the royal tribe that runs that country and the Wahhabis that run the judiciary system. But basically, those are not systems based in freedom and democracy. And I think ultimately, until we as Muslims address those ideologies and look at the reason why America is so successful and we've embraced this country, and the reason why I served in the military was because this country went through an enlightenment process in which it separated church and state. The core documents of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence are especially borne out in the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment, and that the inability to establish religion is key to the beauty of this country and why I served. And ultimately, I think that process has not happened in Islam. And I think if you look, Islamist parties, political Islam, have not won in most of the elections. In Pakistan, they lose all the time, and wherever elections happen, they lose. But they've been slowly gaining a following. Jamaat Islamiyya in Pakistan and many other Muslim Brotherhood has offshoots all through the Middle East. This ideology of political Islam is spreading very quickly, and there's not been an alternative. We need to build ideas that counter. And the conveyor belt to terrorism is political Islam. I love my faith, but my faith of Islam is more about family, moral courage, moral clarity, honesty, integrity, values. It's not about a political system based in Sharia law. And as much as many, even today, you may hear people say that, well, Sharia is like the Declaration of Independence. I don't know what reality they're living in. It may be in our mind, but whenever Sharia runs government, it's oppressive. Wherever you have examples of it running society, and that's actually true for any theocracy. And I think we need our John Locke's, we need our Jeffersons, we need our Bastiats, our Hayeks, our intellectuals to teach liberty. And this is where, as I leave you, I want to ask you, and especially the Muslims in this room, the challenges of being American is I'm not going to be around for my 3 children always to be able to filter what is the wrong Islam from the right Islam. Most of the books that they pick up on Islamic law and on Islam's teachings, and of the 4 schools of thought, especially in the Sunni tradition, Shafi'i, Hanbali, and all of these madhabs or teaching schools of thought, are draconian. They talk about killing somebody if they leave Islam. They talk about a woman getting a half a vote of a man in a legal process. Now, most Muslims will say this is not Islam, they don't understand it. Well, please tell me what books we can give our kids. Which publishing companies give kids Islamic ideas that are commensurate and compatible with this society? And that's where they'll begin to develop an American identity, is when they start seeing our faith's principles go through a reformation, a reinterpretation or ijtihad in a way that separates mosque and state, and that's what our organization is all about. So I think that's the challenge of being an American Muslim. I am concerned there's actually more Wiccans in the U.S. military than there are Muslims. Yes, there are 7,000 Muslims serving in the U.S. military, but there's a reason it's a very small amount. And we can talk about why that is. But I think that we need to start teaching our youth to become bonded to this type of society as being very Islamic, in that we don't want Islamic states. The time for the ummah, meaning nation as opposed to community, is dead. The time for jihad, meaning military, collectivism for military, should be dead. And that jihad to me is a personal struggle, but it should never mean military struggle. But that has not been reinterpreted. And if I leave my kids to read the books on the shelves at most of the mosques, etc., that hasn't been reformed. It's still 13th century, read The Reliance of the Traveler, etc. So thank you for a little taste of what I think we should be part of the discussion today. I hope that we can discuss these things. And one of the things you leave with here seeing is that there is diversity. That when we talk about the Muslim community, it's not a monolith. It's not one little group that's 1% of the population, that it's an identity. That actually we have the same debates within our community that the rest of America has. Thank you.
Our third distinguished speaker today is William Bell Aossey, President of Midamar Corporation, an international food distribution company that distributes halal Islamic food throughout the United States and overseas. Bill is an active leader of the Lebanese Cedar Rapids community. Bill's commitment to making the world a better place extends back to his service in the Peace Corps in Senegal in 1963-1965, to serving a 5-year term on the Civil Rights Commission in Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. Mr. Aossey, we have a privilege to have you, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. If it's okay with you, I do respect you, and I'll stay seated. For many of you that do not recognize the term Assalamu alaikum, how many of you recognize the term Assalamu alaikum? It means, may peace be upon you. And for we being from the Midwest, it should be a common historic greeting, because the American Indians used to say, may you come in peace and may you leave in peace. Assalamu alaikum is the most globally recognized greeting in the world today by more than 3 million people, or 3 billion. It is more than good morning, good morgen, bonjour, shalom, or any other greeting. So when we say Assalamu alaikum, it's not an Islamic term, it comes from an Arabic derivative. So we thank you all for being here. Again, I respect you even though I'm sitting down. Our family first came to Iowa in 1888. So I'm a little bit different than some of our other speakers and panelists. My grandfather settled in northwest Iowa. My father came in 1907. They were hardworking people. I was born and raised in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and the benefit of living and growing up in the United States has many attributes. I grew up in the southwest side of Cedar Rapids, which was predominantly Czech and Catholic. We never had any type of discriminatory elements at that time, and I say especially our family was, there were only two families on that side of town in the middle of a very traditional Catholic Czech community. Now, when we talk about women wearing the veil or hijab, it was very common for us to see nuns completely covered, not much different than the women wearing hijabs today, and some of the nuns were even more formally covered, if you remember, with long dresses all the way down to their ankles. So the concept of seeing a lady covered out of respect either to herself or to her religion, should not be uncommon within our society today and should not be made fun of. The attributes of growing up and being raised in the United States are many. When we talk about education, two of our oldest academic institutions in the world are the American University of Beirut and the American University of Cairo. Why did our academic people go to these regions more than 100 years ago to establish an academic link? How many of you in here know what country was the first country to recognize and formally give acknowledgement to the United States? I want you to be quiet. How many of you know what was the first country to formally recognize the independence of the United States? An African Arab Muslim leader, the Sultan of Morocco, wrote the first letter. Somebody said Morocco, somebody said Tunisia. The first Muslim ambassador to the United States was from Tunisia, and President Jefferson had an iftar dinner for the ambassador and set it in the White House lawn. So our history with the Islamic world is long. Now, one of the troubling things, you say, what do I like about the United States? The openness, the law, the judicial system, the educational system. One of the things that I find troubling within the United States is the very shallow media. May I have a show of hands? How many in here before September 11th ever engaged in a meaningful way with a Muslim neighbor or student? How many of you ever knew of a Muslim before September 11th? A fair share. But also, unfortunately, a fair share of our audience never knew or engaged or met a Muslim before September 11th. We've had a very peaceful history, and this university has benefited from foreign students over the last 30-some years from the Islamic countries. Now, another unfortunate aspect of our media today, the epicenter of our media focuses within this region from Afghanistan to the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, forgetting that from Suriname in South America to Senegal, where I was in the Peace Corps, to Sudan, to Saudi Arabia, to Singapore, to Shanghai, there are more than 1.5 billion Muslims, and historically, our country has been a global warrior, not always by choice. We fought the Mexican-American War, the Hispanic War. We went into Cuba, into Grenada, into Haiti, into Panama, not by choice. We fought throughout Europe twice. We fought the Russians, the Chinese, the Japanese. We fought in Mindanao. We fought in the Philippines and Borneo. But a historic fact, we have never had a military confrontation from Mauritania and Morocco all the way to Malaysia. This is a historic fact. Until recently, with the invasion by Israel into Lebanon and the problem with Saddam Hussein in Afghanistan. So we have to look historically as to what, and again, when you say what is the positive aspects, education, but on the downside, not knowing enough about our history and our relationship in the sense that we've had, over the years, more than 8,000 students from Indonesia and Malaysia